overriding need of the people. I thought you absolutely were spot on. The ordinary people working in the offices want somewhere they can go. They don't want another Maxim's. Well, maybe they do, but they don't want another expensive Maxim's. They don't want another sort of restaurant on the top of Prince's Building. They want places that they can go and eat their sandwiches, their lunchbox, maybe have some more restaurants, which could be in the building above the archive. But to me, it just seems what's crying out, the crying out need here is to open the hill to natural growth, promote it as a link through, up that path, across to the Peak Tram, into the Hong Kong Park, up to the Botanical Gardens. It's the last link in our kind of green lung for Hong Kong. And any campaign that gets mounted needs to really promote all of the points that you've raised and try and appeal to the public who use Central for exactly that purpose. So I think you've got great ideas, but there's a lot of campaigning to do.
Any response from this speaker?
Thanks very much. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I'd like to comment on both those things, what we do with Government Hill and also this archives issue. First of all, it's great to get this sort of support. And I must say, the more I hear, the more kind of excited I get in a sense about what you could actually do with that site. Because, of course, the thing is that it's actually the last place, too, that could be a flat park. Because, you know, the Botanical Gardens and Hong Kong Park are great in their way. But, of course, they're more or less steep. Whereas what we could do here is put a flat park in. And listening to Gladys talking about the canteen, now I'm not quite sure I share her view that but it's got a few years since I've eaten anything there, but it's a fabulous gourmet destination. But there's no doubt, actually thinking about it, that if there was some way to get a reasonably priced restaurant facilities in there, I really feel this would be such a great asset for people and really worth thinking. Now, I'd really like to say some things about this archive issue, which I think is so important. And it's so interesting to hear Simon saying that the archives, kind of the material going there, kind of died away. I left the government in 2006, so I actually had I was in the government from 1972 to 2006, so, you know, so for me it was a fabulous career, which I enjoyed not just because it paid the bills and so on, but because it was such a worthwhile and interesting thing to do. And of course I had a fascinating experience sort of seeing it before and after and what was going on and so on. And I think one of the I think people from outside the government sometimes get overwhelmed wrongly with sort of conspiracy theories, actually. I think that things are happening because of some sort of Machiavellian plot. And often that's not the case. I mean, if you think of things like sending material to the archives, frankly speaking, it's a great nuisance, actually. And people are like really busy. So the sending stuff, sorting stuff out to go to the archives is the last thing or just about that people want to sort of slot into their working day. And I do think, I mean, I don't have any particular brief at all for British colonial administration, but I think that for some probably historical reasons that were transmitted from the British tradition, pre-1997, there was a little bit more sort of feeling for history was important, had to be preserved. We had at least one governor, David Wilson, who was very much a historian and academic himself. So when you were deciding day to day how you're going to fill your very busy days, and there's are busy days that civil servants have, whatever other people may think, you know, if you're going to give some part of that day to working on sending stuff off to the archives, it will be because pressure's coming from the top. And pressure will only come from the top if people at the top have a respect for history and understand exactly what Simon's saying, which I fully agree with, about accountability. Now, there's another very important question, which is certainly not addressed in Hong Kong, and I'm not sure it's addressed anywhere in the world currently, and that is e-government. You know, what's happening now is that, or what I saw in my last years in government, is that the whole government records are becoming a real mishmash because so much is done electronically and a lot of it is not preserved. And I think this will be an issue, probably not just for government, but probably for the whole world in a sense, You know, what do you get down and print and archive and so on? As I say, I mean, the whole issue to do not just with archiving, but also with government efficiency and so on. You know, we have a filing system, or we had when I joined the government, a filing system which was actually derived almost just purely from Victorian times. You know, it was a 19th century filing system. And as I say, I think it was actually a thing of great beauty. You know, people, it was extraordinarily logical and comprehensive. And the advent of electronic communication actually sort of broke that up and was never been properly, the two systems had never been properly integrated, and the whole kind of archival thought about what you do with electronic communications never been given. So I think those are very important issues. And as you say, this whole issue about losing stuff. I mean, you know, I don't want to give the wrong impression. The truth of the matter is, it's true that it's very convenient in a way if people can say that they can't find stuff. And it's also convenient, I mean, data privacy, of course, is sort of a bit of a two-edged sword, because if you get into a position where you can't do things because you've got to protect the privacy of people involved so much, that's another issue. These are very complicated issues. I'm finding this whole feng shui discussion quite fascinating, because it has to be absolutely the case, as Roger Nissen was saying on the radio this morning, very well indeed. There has to be so much documented on feng shui. We've been compensating for that since colonial times began. And we can't actually say that we've got the... But the truth of the matter is we know that feng shui was a very slippery... Sorry, this is a great digression. It was always a very slippery concept, actually. God, I'll just take 2 minutes because it's quite funny. You know, my husband was District Officer Yuen Long in the mid-70s when there were loads of development going on there. And he said, why can't we just do a feng shui map of the district and work out once and for all where all these dragons' veins are and so on, and then we'll know in future, you know, if we're going... And of course nobody wanted to do that, because the fact of the matter is really that, like, the villagers will find, you know, if you're going to develop a new place, they'll suddenly find there's a new sort of dragon's vein offshoot, and then you're not able to look at a book always. It has to be a little matter of give and take. What can we get away with? How much money is really going to buy people off? Whatever. And so, as I say, feng shui is not at all a cut and dry concept, actually. But I'm sure we could find more documents about it. Yes, sorry.
We can go back to the feng shui.
Yes, another session.
Winston, would you like to comment on the planning side or the feng shui of government here?
No, I completely support the vision of John. Let me give you some figures. I mean, we town planners, we are practical people. The whole of Government Hill to Hong Kong as a community is worth $50 billion. 50 billion, fantastic figure. A very large piece of land in the middle of Hong Kong.